Started. Hello, welcome. This is August 5th, 2024. My name is Casey. Welcome back to the Monday 5:30 meditation mindfulness half hour. Um, Meditation is one of the most transformative practices that one can do, if not the most transformative. It is to your mind what exercise is to your body. And just like we can transform and rework and optimize our body on a physical level through healthy eating habits, lifestyle decisions, exercise, things like that. We can do the same with our mind. If we think of the mind as a muscle, we can work it out the same way, but also that progress and that transformative power comes from stillness because we're already moving so much and it can be very, very hard to stop. And so meditation can really optimize our lives wherever you are and whatever you're dealing with. It is kind of a, um, I'll say one size fits all in the sense that anybody can do it, right? This is a very easy practice to access. Not that it is easy to practice, but virtually anyone can sit down and be still. I remember I was working at a yoga studio a long time ago in Santa Clara, and I was teaching a meditation class there, and a young woman came in, and she had a kind of neuro physical condition where her body would move and her head would nod and she would rock forwards and backwards. And she asked me, is this going to be a problem for meditation? And clearly it was a medical condition. I said, no, just, be be as still as you can, find what that feels like for you. And she meditated, and it was a very positive experience for her. She was unable to stop moving on a physical level, but she was still able to uh, realize and start to explore that inner stillness that comes from meditation, mindfulness practice. And when people say, "Oh, I can't meditate, I just can't sit still," I think, well, you just don't want to, which is perfectly fine. But even if you have a medical condition where you can't literally sit still, you can still find that peace, that understanding, that kind of inner stillness, that inner calm, that grounded feeling that comes with a meditation mindfulness practice. And one of the techniques that we use for a meditation practice is the idea of reverse psychology, which is to say, whatever we would normally do, we do the opposite. Whatever we would normally do, we do the opposite, reverse psychology. When a thought comes up that you would normally push away or try not to think of, we let it come. We just let it show up and last for as long as it wants, and we let it go and we watch it. We notice. Same with the emotions. When an emotion comes up and you have an adverse effect because it feels like what we perceive to be a bad emotion, instead of fidgeting or grabbing our phone and zoning out or creating that inner tension against the emotion, we just allow it to come and go. Whatever we would normally do, we do the exact opposite, just to see what happens, because we've been practicing it one way, unconsciously or otherwise, for most of our lives. So why not try the opposite and see what that does, just for the possibility of having tried something new and seeing what the results are there. And reverse psychology is a powerful practice because it puts the power back in our hands, where normally you have an emotion or a thought that you really have a hard time dealing with. It may seem impossible. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about your body being a house and emotions, feelings, thoughts being guests. And they drop by throughout the day. Some guests are more pleasant than others, but we don't have to keep any of them out. We allow them to come, hang out in the house, and then leave. Um, Imagine a person coming to your house who really, really bugs you, and perhaps they even know that they get on your nerves and they irritate you. And normally they'd show up and you try not to let them in, or you're very tense and it's just awkward when they're there. Imagine that person coming in saying hi, and you go, "Hey, stay as long as you want. Stay as long as you want." That person that has all the power over you because they know that, oh yeah, I can really irritate this person. I can really um, make this person feel threatened or angry or whatever. All of a sudden, that dynamic changes. And we think, yeah, stay as long as you want. And then they're less likely to stay as long because we've changed that power dynamic, the power of reverse psychology. And the emotions themselves on paper may not change, which is to say that if you're angry, we recognize that anger. We know the symptoms of that, the side effects, the experience of feeling angry, just like we do feeling sad. We can notice, we can recognize, accept, investigate when necessary, and ultimately not identify, or at least not identify in the same way that we normally would through the practice of reverse psychology. So on paper, we're still angry, but we have changed the way that we choose to interact with that anger. And in a sense, we are changing not only the quality of our relationship to a particular emotion or thought or physical experience, we're not only changing the quality of our relationship to this stimulus, but in a sense, we are changing the quality of the experience itself, the emotion. We're changing that. There's a saying: when you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way that you look at things, the things you look at change. When we start to experiment with this reverse psychology, the approach of doing the opposite, which is oftentimes doing nothing, right? When we're in the throes of an emotional experience, we want to do something about it. It's only human. However, when we're meditating and we're growing the space between stimulus and response, that space is mindfulness. We're doing nothing where we would normally do something, and we recognize, oh yeah, this is usually an experience that I would want to do something about, and I want to do something about it right now, but I'm just not going to. I'm going to choose to do the opposite just to see how it plays out. And the guests come and go, and there's less tension and there's less resistance, and the thoughts that used to scare us, when we allow them to come and go on their own, not only are we less scared, but the thought carries less of a negative or scary charge to it. And so our relationship changes, and the thought itself, in a sense, changes because it's no longer labeled as a bad or just a scary thought that needs to be done away with. All of a sudden, it's kind of just like a thought, just like the other ones. And sometimes it takes time, but the thoughts will repeat themselves. Many of our thoughts are on a rerun, and they know what to expect in terms of reaction to their presence. So we throw them a curveball every once in a while. You go, come on in, stay as long as you want, just to see. And it will feel uncomfortable, and it will feel counterintuitive, right? It will feel wrong for a moment, but it already feels kind of wrong, right? When we're experiencing these deeply rooted, difficult emotions, it already feels wrong. So why don't we just go a little bit further and do the opposite of what we would normally do? Reverse psychology is a very powerful practice. Parents do it to their kids all the time. Um, yeah, there's lots of examples of a parent using reverse psychology, and then all of a sudden the kid doesn't want to do what the parent doesn't want them to do, but they are under the impression that they made the call themselves through the power of reverse psychology. When we sit down, in some ways, we can treat it kind of like a game where we notice what's coming up. And instead of going through the motions, slipping into autopilot, and dealing with these experiences, these stimuli, in a way that makes it very, very difficult to just coexist with them. Instead of doing that, we do the opposite. We think, well, what would happen if I just let this thought come and go on its own, of its own volition? And I actually encourage that. It's not just a passive thing. This is a very active approach to our thoughts and to our emotions. It's a radical, radical approach to take. And many times people don't realize that they have this opportunity, they have this agency, they have this tool or method at their disposal. And when we meditate, we start to get pretty good at it, actually. The more you do it, obviously, the more you get out of it. But pretty soon, these emotions come up in real time, and we can recognize them for what they are. Oh, yeah, that's an anxious thought. But does it hit me as deeply? Does it resonate as deeply? Is the tension there? Am I fighting this thought, this anxious thought, as I once did? And chances are through practice, the answer is no. You have a completely different dynamic. You have reworked your relationship with this emotion, thought, physical sensation, whatever. I mean, imagine physical pain, right? The tendency is to grit your teeth to bear it. Some of that is purely survival instinct, right? And sometimes, to be sure, the body does take over when we're in a lot of pain. And we can feel like we're at the mercy of that pain. What a powerful practice to be able to willingly um, enable the practice of reverse psychology, where we stub our toe and instead of tensing up and screaming and swearing and feeling that stress, we just relax. We just allow everything to flow through us. It's going to be a completely different interpretation, a completely different experience of pain. And the more extreme our pain on a physical, emotional, or physiological level, right, or a mental level, psychological, um, the more intense the pain, the more mindfulness we need, hence the practice. The more we put in, the more we get out of it. The more difficult an emotion, the more difficult a thought, the more difficult a physical sensation, the harder it will be to not slip into autopilot and do the something that we've been doing as opposed to the nothing that can start to strengthen our practice. And, um, the more intense the situation, the more likely we are to slip into autopilot. But through practice, the greater the opportunity to really start to utilize the tools that we've learned through meditation, mindfulness, stillness, looking, recognizing, accepting, investigating, non-identify, reverse psychology, where we think, well, let's just see what happens if I let it come and go. Let's just see what happens if I leave the door open to the house. People can come and go. There's a screen door so the bugs don't get in or whatever. I'll be in my room reading. If they want to come in here, that's fine. Otherwise, they're just kind of checking out the house and then they leave. Right? We're not as affected. We don't take it as personally anymore. And to not take your emotions personally, or to take your emotions as personally as you wish to. I mean, that's freedom. That is a completely different dynamic that many people are unaware even exists. Um, and that's liberation, that's the insight, that's the understanding that comes from meditation. And there's so many benefits that come from the practice, but it's obviously imperative that you practice the fundamentals, of which there are only two. The first is stopping, and the second is looking deeply. And Vipassana, actually, in Sanskrit, that translates roughly into looking deeply. So if you've ever heard of Vipassana, it's a style of meditation um, thought to be the official meditation style of the Buddha, Vipassana. And so reworking these dynamics are, this is a huge takeaway from our meditation mindfulness practice. Within the space of mindfulness, we just allow everything to come and go. And then we're less affected by it in a negative way. We get that opportunity every time we sit down to meditate, which is what we're going to do right now. So find a comfortable seated position, relax, maybe experiment with some reverse psychology, whatever comes up. Let it. Close your eyes, take a few cycles of breath. And just like we try not to attach ourselves to the breath, that would be doing more work. We don't need to hold on to the breathing, nor do we need to try to control or hang on to our emotional, physical, or physiological experience. Moment by moment, breath by breath, we're relaxing, we're letting go. As we practice meditation, it is so important that we try out these tools, these techniques, these methods, these ideas on our everyday, manageable, easier thoughts. The opportunity is there anytime we get a thought. Same with our emotions. By no means do we need to jump into the darkest, deepest depths of our generational trauma or emotional history. These thoughts may present themselves when we're ready, but we have a wide array of available practice with thoughts that you may be more familiar with. Sometimes emotions can feel like a tidal wave, whirlpool, a crushing wave. When we practice, we deal with ripples, splashes, the occasional deep current. We let it come and go. Just breathe. Take a deep breath in. Let it go. Whenever you're ready, gently blink your eyes open. Meditation is a practice. It is an art. Uh, Many of us, when we were younger, played some kind of sport, involved in some kind of extracurricular activity. And hopefully there were times where you were excited to go to practice or you enjoyed your time during the practice. It's important that we take our meditation practice seriously, but that doesn't mean we need to be serious all the time. Within that space of mindfulness, there's room to be playful, to experiment, to explore, to express, to expand, um, to evolve. And really, meditation doesn't have to be just one thing, it can be anything. In fact, the more you practice, the more it becomes your thing. So you get control over what you want it to be. Sometimes the experiences can be very heavy, very overwhelming. Other times, kind of light, kind of fun, perhaps. And really, it varies moment by moment, breath by breath. The more open we are, the more practice we get, and the deeper our practice goes, the more we can appreciate the experience that we have, and really transform, heal, and continue to understand and move forward. That's the power of this practice. I want to thank you, as always, for sharing your practice with me. Always so much fun. Take care. Enjoy the week.